Brian would almost come centre and stuff like that. I like that sort of ebb and flow, which is what I found them. Concerts that I found that I can remember. I remember Madison Square Garden once when Bicycle. Remember that was a big hit, and that was fantastic because that was coupled with Fat Bottom Girls, and I think I was on stage as well with some of them because we were singing some of the choruses back just like a group with roadies and everything. But I remember the girls coming down on the Fat Bottom Girls coming down on the bicycles. And that was great. Just those little moments of sheer show magic.
Queen's longevity has often been attributed to their sheer determination to succeed, as well as their respect for each other and their passion for producing music.
You have to think that they were friends, first and foremost. Then you also have to remember that it's a business. So try and think of how any company with 4 CEOs, you know, it cannot be just one whole. There's pulling here, pushing there, because each of them had an equal say. That was one thing Freddie strongly emphasised. He hated it whenever it was called Freddie Mercury and his band Queen, because Freddie was 25%, John 25%, Roger 25%, Brian 25%. Everybody had an equal input, equal output, equal input.
A lot of the time, they were never in the studio at the same time. I mean, you know, Fred would go do his bit, and Brian would go do his bit, and so on. And occasionally, of course, when they're doing the mixing and all that, so, you know, they'd all be there. And, yeah, sure.
And they disagreed about certain things, and they didn't, but it always came out all right. So their working relationship would be like any other working relationship. Like working in the theatre, you might have a disagreement with the director about how you're going to do something, but you have to get there because that's your unit. And I think they enjoyed actually working with each other and performing with each other. I think really, I don't think they'd do it because they were strong enough that they would just say no.
At the height of the punk scene, Queen bounced back in classic style with a harder-edged rock album, News of the World, released on the 28th of October 1977. The album's lead single was the anthemic We Are the Champions.
That's probably one of their most diverse albums, thinking about it. Had We Are the Champions on and We Will Rock You, which are the 2 very famous songs on that album. But there were things like Spread Your Wings, which John Deacon wrote, and is an absolute epic. I'm not quite sure what the lyrics mean, I have to say, but that's another fantastic Brian May solo. Excellent. There's All Dead on there, which I can't remember if Brian sang or not. I think he did, actually. Which has got, in my opinion, the best guitar orchestration of his career. It's fantastic. That's with this little battery-powered amp that John Deacon made before Queen were even Queen, to be honest.
Fred wrote We Are the Champions on Sherry Brown's kitchen table. You know, I remember, because I was staying with Sherry at the time. And just, you know, it's so important that that song just sort of came out of... I'd given him a book on some Japanese poetry, and it was called You Are My Champion, and it all came from that.
We were playing a track which wasn't necessarily released as a proper A-side, which we all love and adore now, called We Will Rock You. I was a disc jockey in my own clubs in those days, so we were hammering We Will Rock You, you know. Because it was very short, which was perfect for the club scene in those days. We're not talking clubbers, we're talking nightclub dancing, real charty stuff. And once again, he joined me for a bottle of champagne. He still didn't have that wild Freddie Mercury look, but he wasn't the curly-haired kid I'd seen in the early 70s either, you know?
As the 70s drew on, and Queen seemed to just become the biggest band on the planet, I think that the songwriting sort of became stronger in a way. The songs had to become more instant. The earlier albums with the more introverted music seemed to fall by the wayside, and the albums that came out, like Jazz, you found that the songs were explicitly radio-friendly and they more and more anthemic.
On the 8th of December came the release of the Flash Gordon album. Although the film was a relative disaster, the soundtrack gained rave reviews.
In the early 80s, after trying to work Flash Gordon, which I think is still a very successful album to listen to today, without there's a lot of instrumental passages in it, that worked quite well. But then they moved on to Hot Space, I think, in '82, and it was as if they were trying to be disco, and really, perhaps a little bit too late.
But I cried when I heard it, believe it or not. Disco, oh my God, no. And it was no coincidence that their popularity started to come back down to earth, especially in America. But as Rodgers famously quoted, they didn't really notice because they were so effing popular everywhere else in the world.
Freddie, now an A-list celebrity and with an income to match, had many interests outside of Queen.
I can't remember when I first met Freddie, because I feel I've known him all my life, really. When you meet him, he has that impact on you. But I think it must be because I was doing a musical at the Mermaid Theatre called The Point, and Harry Nilsson, the great singer, had composed this musical, and he was obviously from the pop world, and he was my introduction into that life. I think he introduced me to John Reid, Elton's manager, who then introduced me to Freddie at a gay club or something like that. And he said, "Oh, Mr. Sleep, I'd love to come and see the ballet." And I said, by all means. You know, I was really keen on, you know, integrating the arts together. And so I thought, well, maybe he'll compose something for us at Covent Garden one day, you never know. And so then I introduced him to all the dancers. And he did, he used Wayne Eagling to choreograph one of his videos. And I introduced him to Peter Freestone there, who became his minder, more or less, who was my dresser at the time. So we all got to know each other very well.
He didn't create an impression with me. He was small. He wasn't trying to be anybody. He wasn't trying to be, you know, he didn't actually have the full Freddie mask on. You know, he'd done his show, he was at a party afterwards. He still wasn't the Freddie I got to know. He still had the, you know, there was sort of like a wall, a mask, which also makes it hard to sort of gauge a person. If you were to meet someone like that, you think they're standoffish, they're arrogant. But Freddie never actually gave that impression.
The charisma of the man was startling, because within a short while of drinking a little champagne, as you would in those days, we were chatting away quite. And then it hit me, because I said, Freddie, I'd like a photograph. I said, OK. And he said, yes. But immediately started doing his hair and his face like this. Because all we got in those days was a Polaroid. So